What if the biggest secret in a celebrity's life is not a scandal, not a feud, not a hidden contract, but a tiny heartbeat they chose to protect from the world? Tonight on Update X24H, we are not talking about a breakup, a rumor, or a red carpet dispute. We are talking about the moment when Yulong and young Mei Mei quietly walked into a simple room and turned an ordinary press conference into one of the most tender, unforgettable family revelations in recent memory. Stay with me because this is not just about a secret child. It is about love, protection, and the courage to say, "Our family comes first." From the outside, it looked like any other media event. A neutral backdrop, neat rows of chairs, a podium with 2 microphones waiting under the lights. Yet the moment people stepped into that room, they sensed something was different. There were no bright sponsor backdrops, no loud music, no playful chatter between staff. Instead, there was a quiet, almost fragile stillness, as if the air itself were holding its breath. Reporters spoke in softer tones than usual, glancing at the empty stage and checking the time, wondering why such a simple setting carried such a heavy mood. No poster of a new drama, no teaser of a film, no hint of a product launch. Just 2 name cards, Yulong and young Mei Mei. It felt less like a promotion and more like a testimony. Something personal was about to be placed before the cameras, not for applause but for understanding. Even before they appeared, everyone in that room understood deep down that whatever was coming would not be easily forgotten. When Yulong finally stepped onto the stage, the energy in the room shifted at once. This was not the charismatic leading man the public was used to seeing on billboards and award stages. There was a weight in his expression, a quiet tiredness in his eyes that no makeup could disguise. He stood for a moment behind the microphones, not quite ready to speak, simply letting his gaze travel across the faces in front of him. It was as if he was searching for the courage to move from the private world he had been living in, into the public space he could not completely escape. He straightened his jacket out of habit, but the gesture felt more like grounding than posing. Reporters, used to shouting questions and chasing soundbites, fell unexpectedly silent. Without saying a word, Yulong told them that this was not about a role or a rumor. He was not there as a star defending his image. He was there as a man carrying a truth he could no longer keep only to himself. The true turning point came when the door opened a second time, and young Mei Mei entered. She did not stride in like a glamorous celebrity. She walked carefully, attentively, because in her arms lay the center of their world. Wrapped in a soft blanket, their daughter looked out at the room with wide, unknowing eyes. She blinked at the scattering of lights, tiny hands curled in gentle fists, unaware that her quiet presence had just rewritten the narrative of 2 public lives. For a moment, even seasoned journalists forgot their training. They simply stared. The resemblance was undeniable. A trace of Yulong in the line of her face, the softness of Mei Mei in the curve of her cheeks. She was proof of something no rumor had captured, no camera had stolen. A whole chapter of their lives lived in silence suddenly had a visible breathing form. In that instant, the story shifted away from gossip and speculation and landed firmly in the territory of love, responsibility, and the fragile innocence they had fought so hard to shield. What the cameras did not see were the countless quiet scenes that led to this day. While social media argued over casting choices and imagined conflicts, their real life unfolded behind closed doors. There were long hospital corridors walked in worry, hands clasped tightly together. There were nights when the world thought they were absent from events, when in reality they were gently rocking a sleepless baby, learning the rhythm of her breathing. Mei Mei tracked each small change, each new sound, each tiny smile, as if they were priceless treasures. Yulong, who had delivered scripted lines for years, found himself whispering unscripted comfort in the dark, promising a child who could not yet understand that she would never face this world alone. Their absence from the spotlight was not a disappearance. It was a deliberate choice to turn towards a smaller, quieter universe, where the milestones were not awards or ratings, but the first time their daughter grasped a finger, the first time she calmed at the sound of their voices. Those months of silence were not empty. They were full of a different kind of success. When they finally spoke about their decision, their words carried the weight of experience, not theory. They knew how quickly a photograph could be twisted, how easily a name could become a trending topic for reasons that had nothing to do with truth. They had watched others' children turned into symbols or targets, and they resolved that their daughter would not become another story for public consumption. Mei Mei's health after the birth had been delicate, and they had faced moments of genuine fear. In those hours, the noise of the outside world felt unbearably distant and unimportant. All that mattered was recovery, stability, and giving this new life the gentlest start possible. So they chose to protect without explanation, to guard without seeking praise. Their silence was not arrogance, it was a form of care. Only when whispers and distorted tales began to circle dangerously close to their private reality, did they decide it was time to speak. They did not appear to justify themselves, but to place a clear boundary around the one person who could not yet speak in her own defense. What unfolded that day was not a performance designed to chase views or soften an image. It was something rarer in the world of entertainment, a public declaration of limits. Yulong and Yang Mei Mei did not come armed with dramatic slogans or carefully rehearsed lines. Instead, they laid out, in steady, thoughtful language, where their public lives ended and where their private responsibilities began. They acknowledged the curiosity that fame invites, but they also reminded everyone that fame does not cancel out the right to draw a line. Their daughter, they insisted, was not a backdrop for their careers and not a tool to stir engagement. She was a person with a future that deserved to be shaped by love, not by headlines. The statement they made was not just about one family. It echoed a quiet plea for a gentler, more respectful way of looking at public figures. In choosing not to trade their child's privacy for momentary attention, they offered a different example of what it means to stand in the spotlight and still protect a core of untouchable intimacy. For all the strength of their words, it was the unscripted gestures that softened the hardest faces in the room. When their daughter shifted restlessly, Mei Mei instinctively adjusted her hold, whispering something only the baby could hear. The way her shoulders relaxed when the child settled spoke of nights spent learning that same movement by trial and error. When those tiny fingers reached out and closed around Yulong's thumb, his expression changed in a way no director could have instructed. The man who was used to controlling his image seemed, for a second, completely unguarded, caught between pride and humility. Some reporters lowered their cameras just for a heartbeat, simply to take in the sincerity of what they were seeing. In an industry where appearances are endlessly polished and rehearsed, these small, clumsy, tender moments felt disarming. They reminded everyone present that beneath the carefully curated surfaces, there are people whose most important roles do not take place on set, but in the quiet spaces of home, holding a child who has no idea what a spotlight is. As the footage traveled across platforms, viewers around the world experienced a wave of emotions. First, there was pure surprise. Many had followed every public step of Yulong and Yang Mei Mei's journey, never suspecting that such a profound change had taken place out of sight. Questions rose quickly, but they were soon joined by a deeper, more reflective response. Fans began to look back at pauses in their schedules, at seemingly ordinary posts, at unexplained absences from events, and the pieces started to fit. Instead of anger at being kept in the dark, a large part of the audience expressed something else. Understanding. Messages poured in, not demanding more details, but thanking them for choosing what felt right for their child, rather than what was convenient for public curiosity. Some parents shared their own stories of protecting their families from unkind eyes. Others admitted that the reveal had changed the way they thought about celebrity privacy altogether. Shock slowly transformed into respect, and respect into a quiet kind of gratitude for being allowed to witness even a small part of such an intimate chapter.